this is wholeness. All there is wholeness. This is complete. It doesn't need to go anywhere, and it didn't come from anywhere. It is the infinite arising as this. It is formlessness in form. It's a boundless energy. That boundless energy can and is everything. So there's only really energy arising as everything. This is energy appearing as this. Because energy is completely free and wild and chaotic and ordered, it can also be limited. It can be anything. So it also arises as apparent separation. And that apparent separation seems to arise in the human being. So the human being, at a very early age, suddenly has a sense of identity, as though it's a separate subject, and everything else in the world is an object that arises from it. So directly that separation arises, so a story begins. It's called, for me, I like to call it, the story of me. The story of me begins, time begins, and there's a sense, as I say, of there being something here with a world out there of lots of other somethings. So there's a subject-object sense. There's a subject here, and everything else is an object. That's the reality which seems to arise for me. And it's an artificial reality, but for me it seems to be very real. And what also seems to be real is the idea that me, the person, the self, has free will and choice. And lives in a world that is absolutely in a state of cause and effect. So cause and effect is part of the artificial reality of me. And everything for the me seems to be real. It's fixedly real. I am something, there's lots of somethings out there, and those somethings are real. They're real objects that are actually happening to me in my life. It's my experience of them. They arise as my experience, in a sort of train of experiences. So the me is travelling around in a circle, going from one experience to the next experience to the next experience. Me is living in what's next. But what also arises in that experience is the sense of being separate from everything. And so what can happen is a sense of dissatisfaction can arise in the reality of me, because everything else seems to be apart from me. And so there's a sense of unfulfillment about that. And for many people, or for some people more and more now, there's a question as to why it is like that. People look for something more fulfilling than being in a separate world. And so they might move to religion or therapy or enlightenment or whatever to find the answer to that sense of dissatisfaction. But the difficulty is that the me is an artificial construct, and it lives in its own artificial reality. And it also lives in a finite world. So everything that's happening to this me is in a finite world. And what it looks for, what it longs for, it doesn't necessarily even recognise. When it thinks about enlightenment, it doesn't really know what that is. When it thinks of the kingdom of heaven, which is the promise of Christianity, it doesn't know what that is. It doesn't have any idea of what it longs for, because what it longs for can't be known in the finite world. Because what it longs for is the infinite, is the timeless. And so it tries as hard as it can to find that, and it might go to a teacher who seems maybe to have found something, and it tries to learn how to take a path towards something in the future called fulfillment. But the difficulty with that teaching and that lesson is that again it's on a circle going round in a series of events. So the student may learn to meditate and experience a state of peace sometimes, or stillness. The student may learn to self-inquire and learn states of increasing knowledge, the dropping away of so-called ignorance, and the development of a sense of detachment. That can be a state that can come and go, and that can be mistaken for a sense of enlightenment, because detachment brings a sort of sense of freedom. And all the time that the student, me, is travelling around in this separate reality, it can never ever be open to the sense of something that's infinite, because it only functions within the finite. Me and the story coexist. Well, they exist as each other. Me can't live without the story, and the story can't exist without me. So the me can only function within the known world of its own, which is a finite world. So whatever it finds and seems to grasp or own is again finite, is again, it comes and goes, it's transient. Nothing can be held on to, there's nothing constant. It's just a set of experiences. So what we're sharing together today is the illumination of the dilemma of seeking. What we're sharing together today is the illumination of the myth of there being a me, and the myth of there being a story. In some way or other, we can share that together through talking together, sharing concepts together, and that's a fairly superficial part of this meeting. The most powerful part of this meeting is something that's energetic. Essentially, separation is the contraction of energy in the body. It's not a thought. Separation is not a thought or an idea or belief. It's energetic. It's energetically held. Just like fear. When fear arises, the whole body can be afraid. So separation is a subtle sense of living in a separate reality. So what can happen when that contracted sense of separation meets boundlessness is that it can melt back into the boundless, apparently. All of that's a story, all of that's an appearance. But the further we talk about this, so it becomes apparent that the separate reality is illusory, and there is another reality which I call natural reality, in which everything simply arises as it is.
Tony? Yeah, I have a question.
One, two, three. Is that your question? 1, 2, 3. No, it's 4, 5, 6.
I would like to know if there is formless energy and also energy in form, or is just the formless energy appearing as form?
Well, you could say either of those things. This is beyond comprehension, really. All there is no thing arising as this. So what you're looking at is nothing, no thing, appearing as this. So you could say that that is also the formless in form. This is form, but it is also the formless. They aren't apart, they're both the same thing. That's impossible to comprehend. But the other way that I seem to express it these days is that all there is energy, which is the formless in form. So there's energy. I like the word energy because it's not spiritual. Like wholeness and oneness have a sense of being spiritual words. This is not a spiritual message. So basically, if I say all there is energy, I'm describing the formless in form. But the energy is also the absolute energizer.
Yes, but if there isn't any separation, so the I can only exist in the time, and time is memory, the past and the future, and it appears in thoughts.
Well, yeah, you're now in the separate reality, which is a story,
yes,
which has thoughts, an apparent past and an apparent future.
Go back.
All of that is energy.
To the source where the thoughts are coming from. You can't actually not find a thought.
So you can't?
You can't find a thought. There is just the energy that appears in feelings first. Then the thoughts are coming, and I can see a connection to the source, actually.
Well, there is none, because
yes.
Thought arising is source.
It's arising in the form.
Yeah, but they are both the same thing. Though you divide them, you're back into a dualistic world. This is no thing. This is the source appearing as this. And in simple terms, there is just energy, which arises thoughts. And in the separate reality arises past, future, right and wrong, my story.
There isn't actually any ghost or something that
Any?
is more urban than...
You better put the microphone on, can't
that is more urban than the feeling and the senses.
More urban?
Yeah, comes earlier.
No, there isn't an earlier. There is no time. This is the infinite business, which can be described as energy appearing as this. The difficulty with words is that they tend to describe subject-object world, but the words used here are pointing to the infinite, not away from it. So what they're trying to point to is that which can't be expressed. And the nearest I can get to it is to say that all there is what is and isn't. This is what is what seems to be happening, and it also isn't happening. So we're talking about something that can't be known. What the seeker is looking for is unknowable. And that's the dilemma, because the seeker wants to find something it can know, and know how to find it. But I don't think that's helped you at all. Yeah. It's not intended to help you, by the way.
The energy is a flow. The energy is a flow, and all the words or what you're speaking is just more contracting the energy.
Yeah, it points to that.
Yes.
I mean, we could spend the afternoon not speaking, yes, but that would suggest that there's something better than something else. There is no choice about speaking, it's what happens. If you only confine yourself to listening to the words and the sense they make, then you're only going to reach some sort of understanding or misunderstanding. Something, as I said, there is something else going on here, which is beyond the words. There's nothing wrong with the words either. They point to the unknowable.
Thank you very much.
But they can't describe the unknowable.
Tony, I last week read in one of your books, and I read the sentence that the body-mind organism is conditioned. And could you describe it once more in your words now? Because if there only is this, how can there be conditioning of a body-mind organism?
Because conditioning is what is. There is only what is, and what is can arise as conditioning. The brain takes on conditioned responses to whatever seems to be happening, and those conditioned responses, like anything else, are what is. What is isn't pointing to something that's only spiritual and very good. It points to everything that is apparently arising, including what the mind, or the seeking mind, would think of as good or bad.
Yes. Then we can say conditioning arises?
Apparently.
Apparently.
It's only apparent.
Okay.
It's energy appearing as apparent condition. Yeah. And it has absolutely no relevance or meaning.
Tony, but I think it must be, it must have some relevance because the experience is different. For instance, here in the room, we all have different experience, I suppose. When you speak to us.
There's something not working. I don't know what it is, but there's no difference.
Shall I repeat it?
You know, what you're saying is that we all have different experiences. Therefore, there must be some relevance.
Yes.
But the different experiences are what's happening in the story, and the story is illusory and has no relevance of any kind. It's only the me that believes that its story is very important and significant because it's going somewhere else. There isn't anything going anywhere. There's only what is, and what is the timeless infinite.
Yes.
Well, you'll have to just speak loud.
But that's clear, but for the eye, it's important. Otherwise,
so it's important. Oh, for the eye,
yes.
Everything is important.
Yes.
When Tony Parsons was an eye, was a seeker, apparently.
I don't mean my eye.
No, all right. But my eye was much more important than the eye, everything is important because the eye believes it is real and that his story is real and that everything happening in the story is real. Very significant and important, you see? Even the microphone thinks it's important. And what we're illuminating here is the possibility that that whole importance and story of me is illusory. It's not real.
But why is the world like it is?
There's no answer to why. The seeker's constantly asking why, because it wants to know how. The seeker asks, why is my life like this? Because it wants to know how to be free from it. There's no answer. There aren't any answers here. All the responses to the questions point back to the natural reality that all there is what is. And what is timeless. And that the seeker lives in an artificial world in time and thinks it's important and significant.
do you feel at the same time separated and not separated?
No, when apparent liberation or when the me collapses, there is nothing left. So there's no experiencer, there's no awareness, there's nothing that knows. All there is what's apparently happening, which is this.
And in one of your usual day, is it possible to say that half of the day or quarter of the day you feel separated?
Sorry,
No.
half of the day is what?
No, do you experience in your daily life this no separation feeling?
No. After the me is no more, when the illusion of me is no more, which is the end of something that was never happening, there isn't anything left that experiences or knows or is aware. All that's left is what is happening, which is what is. So there wouldn't be something that would experience separation. There never was. The experience of separation is illusory. Actually, it's a bit dingy in here. Should we put a light on? Oh, well, the light's on the most important person in the
Tony, you always, or it seems to me, or how I get it, that you describe it as like there is a me and then blip and the me is gone. Can't there be, well, sometimes, for what seems to be left of me, you know, there seems to be a kind of oscillation between different states, like there is no me, and then there is
that's a state of awakening, prior to liberation. But the me that arises is only an appearance.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, prior to liberation there can be a dancing between me and being.
Yeah, but dancing is kind of euphemism because it's not. No, well, it's horrible. You know?
Or a battle. Would you like a battle?
No, it's like kind of thrown out into space, you know, sometimes, and then total identification, but not enough of me to do anything about this, and then. Sometimes there is no me, but you know, anything like feelings or emotion goes immediately up to 100%. In a way, it's interesting. If it wasn't me experiencing it.
Awakening is probably the worst thing of all. Prior to awakening, you're happily a seeker, you know, and there's all sorts of things you're collecting in your seeking bag. Books and ideas and concepts and states and experiences. But when suddenly there's an opening, what I call a glimpse to this, then there's a period where you are neither in one world or the other. You know, but this is all a story, it's only an appearance. And you sort of recognise that the old state of seeking was completely ridiculously futile, which it is. But you haven't yet died and fallen in love with everything. So it's awful.
I haven't even been a seeker, you know.
Oh,
just
well, that's even worse.
accompanied my husband to a meeting.
But Tony Parsons was in a state of awakening for years. So.
That was horrible.
At times, at other times still alright. It's not good. because I longed, Tony Parsons longed for that wholeness, which had now been, in a way, tasted, although not by Tony Parsons.
But do you think this state might also just stay forever?
Yes, it can do. It depends what you mean by forever, really. There is no forever. But if you're implying, can it stay like that for the rest of that life? Yes, it can. But the only thing is that, as far as Tony Parsons was concerned, the apparent Tony Parsons, he thought he had to be a certain way to bring about that wholeness. And then, when it all collapsed, it was realised there never was a Tony Parsons that could be one thing or the other. And what you're hearing is that there's nothing that can be done and there's no one to do it. There's nothing that needs to be done in that state of awakening. So the way in which awakening can be prolonged or lengthened is by the apparent investment of the seeker in trying to be one thing or another, like still or living in the moment or the other.
Well, on the other hand, there's no guarantee that this will be realized.
Nothing is guaranteed.
So God is not so merciful, even if I have tried hard all the life.
No, there isn't even one, so that's even worse, isn't it?
Realizing this, there is a longing. Well, it has been a longing in the past, but after this longing has dropped away, what to do? So I sometimes look, and sometimes I look for, I don't know, some spiritual meaning or something, but it just is for momentarily, just for a few hours or a day.
What is? What?
This so-called search, or the longing, but then it vanishes in the air. It's gone completely, and then I'm just again here.
Has it gone completely? My sense, the sense here is that all the time there is separation, there's a longing, even if it's very subtle. A longing for there not to be separation.
I experienced when this body came here today, I felt this joy, I felt this, I don't know, I mean, even as you say, the being or the source is the same everywhere where I live or if I came here, but if I'm here, something was attracting, or was joyful, thrilling.
When there's an openness to something that's beyond the self-seeking energy, then there can be a joy or recognition of this message which points to something that's absolutely beyond even being knowable. Something recognizes this. There's a sense of something beyond that's recognized.
And also sometimes there are times of complete I don't know how to explain, like closed off from the rest.
Closed off
from the rest of the world, I don't know. So it's just a big contrast, you know. Just here there is no question. Yes, you know this. You can.
That's what's happening.
Yes. And there can't be done anything.
Well, no, of course not. There isn't any need for anything to be done. It's just what's happening. You know, seeking and separation are the absolute expression of wholeness. Wholeness isn't interested in the end of seeking, because seeking is wholeness appearing as seeking. So there's nothing out there trying to end separation, because separation is the absolute expression of what is.
Thank you.
Thank you for nothing.
Hello? Yeah, I'm sure I asked you that before, but I always forget. You've been asked if there's determination.
Determination.
Determination, you said no, because nothing is going on, actually. But there is an illusion or an apparent story for me.
Yeah, in which there seems to arise determination.
Well, I don't know. That's my question. Who or what writes the story?
Who or what?
Writes or determines the story, how the story looks like?
Oh, no one and nothing. It's only energy appearing as an apparent story, or it is the appearance of an apparent story in which there seems to be determination. And although there seems to be something going to somewhere, it's totally illusory.
It is, but the illusion seems to take one form or another form. Yeah. So how is it determined which form? So to say?
It isn't. It just is what happens. There's nothing out there writing a script. And simply because if it goes one way or the other, both of those apparent directions are totally irrelevant. There's no relevance in the story. It's an illusion. It's a myth. So it's not pointing to anything.
So you can't say it's either coincidence or it's creation or it's whatever?
None of those things. There's no creation. How can there be creation if this is...
Illusionary creation?
Well, illusory, yeah, but so who's interested in illusory creation?
Always the eye.
Oh, the eye is interested in all sorts of silly things.
Don't be so cruel to the eye. It's really penetrant. It's always asking.
It's very convincing, and most people in the world are quite sure they are people living in a story which has meaning, and they can determine the path of that story.
Or if not, or if they are just like robots and it's a film already made and they only have to watch it. I mean, there are a lot of concepts, but it's really no answer which of the concepts is right.
There isn't one. Oh no, there's no right or wrong, only in the story.
Oh, this is not satisfactory.
No, it isn't. This is a very unsatisfactory message. This is the one message that the individual will come to, which is absolutely pointless.
You know, every time, I'm pretty sure every time I ask this question, and every time I sit here, and I know I don't have to ask this question, but I always ask this question again and again. Funny, isn't it? So I'm really not, I can't learn.
Well, no, the me can't hear this message. The me will never get this message because this message is out of the infinite, and the me lives in a finite world. So me can't hear this message.
No, obviously not.
That's why, for the individual, this is a pointless meeting, because the needs of the individual are not served. There's nothing here for the individual.
Yeah, so I ask you next time the same
You
question.
I want to ask you something about dreaming.
Meaning.
About dreaming.
Dreaming.
Nighttime dreaming. I mean, I'm not into dream analysis necessarily, but I woke up recently from a dream and I was just amazed and astounded how much detail from the forms and colors and feelings and people. And when I woke up, I just wondered, where does that come from?
Well, nothing.
From nothing.
Everything only comes from nothing and is nothing, appearing as what is, which is in this case the dream.
I thought you would say that. But I just find it so amazing, just the intricate detail and just that it's coming out of nothing. It's just amazing.
But this is the same thing. This is amazing. This is nothing appearing as this. And it's pretty detailed.
But the other thing I wanted to ask you, then in the daytime when there are real forms and objects and colors and detail, is that then that dreaming mechanism still functioning then? And then
in another form, it's the same thing. For the me wakes up in the morning having dreamt about something and believes that it's now woken up. It's just another dream. It just seems more real. The dream of living in a separate world. So for the me, this is another dream. The reality, the me can't see trees and people and sky, because those things appear to be separate. Even thought and feelings are removed from the individual by apparently being separate and apart. So it's a dream of apartness.
One more thing I want to ask is, for you, does nighttime dreaming happen?
Well, nothing happens for me because there isn't anyone.
Okay.
But in the night time there is deep sleep and then there can be dreaming. But it's not, it's usually very ordinary. Well, in fact, it's just very ordinary. Of course, there's no longer anything that believes it to be relevant. So I think the sense for the me is that everything that happens to it is important. So dreaming is also more coloured and seems to be more relevant.
Tony, if I understand it right, freedom is a very simple state. I mean, nothing special. But how is it that over the centuries there was the message that enlightenment is something great, a special state, and people go in white clothes and so on. How is it that it happened? Or there's like two different messages.
Oh, because there's two different realities in simple terms. In the separate reality, there's a story about somebody finding something called enlightenment. And when it's found, this apparent enlightenment, then it's always extraordinary and special and totally blissful, and it's described in the way that the seeking mind would describe what it thinks it's discovered. It has nothing to do with enlightenment or liberation, it's just another part of the story. I've found the treasure. I've won the spiritual lottery. So it's always very grand, and often there's very complicated descriptions of it and wonderful descriptions of it, because that's what the seeking mind would like to find. It doesn't last because it's an illusion, but the person that claims that they found it can apparently own something and turn it on or off when it's necessary. But that's part of the story. In the natural reality, so-called liberation actually doesn't exist. When that which is longing for liberation collapses, then what's left is very simple and ordinary and natural. But that unknowable reality is, compared to the story of enlightenment in the story, is immeasurably beyond. There's no comparison with it. One is a bottle of champagne, and the other one is indescribable.
But it is difficult to believe that sages were in an illusion. The people who were saying, "I'm enlightened," and then you see that they have some special kind of energy, and you know they are completely in the illusion. In some cases, most cases, I would see it, but I think maybe great sages.
If somebody says that they are enlightened, then they obviously are.
They don't say that they are enlightened,
Oh, I see.
but they.
But so lots of other people say they're enlightened.
Yeah, but some don't say that, but still they have such a message, even if they don't say that, but you realize they are in a different state.
How do you realize? If the state is described, unless the state is described, there's no way of apparently recognizing that that person is enlightened. Any idea that the state of apparent enlightenment can be described is already illusory. This has happened, a so-called liberation, which doesn't happen, has apparently happened to many people, and none of them can describe it. It's indescribable because it's unknowable.
Thank you.
About 10 years ago, I had been at your workshops, and if I remember it right, you had said to us, if one loses the eye, one should go, give you a call. Well, that's not the point. And with me this happened. There was a situation when I was gone, and there was another eye, a big eye, let's say, which was the one which experienced.
Oh.
And
I'm sorry, I'm not with you at the moment.
but
Apparently the me was not there anymore, but there was something else there that was experiencing something.
the main experiencer was not my person. And I was convinced that was what you had meant. I should call you, but as I said, I was too shy to it. And for me, it has changed my life totally. Since then, I'm no longer convinced about this usual I. But I mean, this usual what we normally experience. But nevertheless, if I say I lost the state, and I make it a state, I don't mean that. But somehow I lost the experience, but never I lost the knowing of the how to say. Bedeutung, what is Bedeutung of the meaning of this for my life. And so I'm in a strange situation since years. Something has totally changed, and nevertheless, nothing has changed. And so
I'm not really absolutely sure what you're saying. I know that the me, usually when it forms and takes identity, after a while it splits itself into two. There's a higher self and a lower self. And a lot of people, like our friend talking about enlightenment, the higher self can come to believe that it's enlightened because it now thinks that there's no lower self. But there's no, when the me collapses, there's nothing else that experiences that. There isn't something else that experiences no self. There's just no self.
But I'm experiencing now this situation.
Well, I'm not sure what you're describing. I'm only saying what's happening here is that there's no sense of there being anything else that's experiencing this. There just is this happening.
I can't...
So I'm not quite sure what you're describing.
Yes, I think I'm not able to describe this in English. It's so fine. So, okay.
Tony, could you say something about the English word is conscience? You know this word from the Catholic Church?
Consciousness. Consciousness?
Gewissen, we say. Conscience.
Oh, conscience.
Yes.
For me, it's an artificial construct which is very much related to religion.
Yes.
Like Christian religion will teach people that they have a sense of right or wrong, which they call a conscience.
Yes.
So they use their conscience to judge or choose to do right and avoid wrong. That is completely locked into the story of me.
Yes.
The idea, the religious idea that there's a right or wrong, and it comes out of the sense of a story, in which a dualistic story, in which there are two things, right and wrong, better or worse, and the further illusion that there is something that can choose to do one or the other. So the idea of conscience is totally illusion.
Yes,
it's like the soul.
It's very grasping with the me.
Sorry?
It's very connected with the me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, it is the me.
It
in
is
the
me.
story of me,
Yes.
in the Christian world more than any other, in which it's taught, and the idea might be adopted, that there is such, I have a conscience and I can choose to do right or wrong.
Sometimes if I just sit around not working, not writing the bills for my clients, for example, then it's grasping.
Yeah, well it does grasp.
Yes.
It's energy arising as an apparent belief system which is connected with the idea of good and bad. It's completely irrelevant. But it's what seems to happen. It's like the soul, the idea that the human being has something in it called a soul, which is spiritual, and the rest of the human being is just ordinary and not spiritual. It's like that sort of structure. It's dualistic. And it's coffee time as well.